The GPS DairyCAST features the high-value insights of the GPS Dairy Consulting team's trusted advisors and the owners and managers from the elite dairy farms they serve. These conversations deliver on the GPS Dairy Consulting promise to inspire change and grow leaders.
Hello and welcome to the GPS DairyCAST. I'm Peggy Coffeen from the Up Level Dairy Podcast, serving as your host. And on this GPS DairyCAST, we are coming to you from the 2024 GPS Leaders Forum. And joining me for this episode are three GPS team members, Stephanie Jens, Jordan Hunt, and Erin Mosley. And you are going to hear all about FeedFIT on this episode, including FeedFIT Discovery, FeedFIT Investigation, feeding data review, and the FeedFIT modules that all contribute to turning the feed center into a profit center on your dairy. Enjoy this conversation with this team of GPS consultants.
Well, today we are here to talk about all things FeedFIT, and I'm joined with two of my teammates, Erin Mosley and Jordan Hunt. And to kind of set the stage, we're going to give a little bit of a backdrop about what FeedFIT is. It's an internal initiative that was really started by some consultants on the team several years ago. And it is a module-based program, and there is 9 modules within the program. And it's really a 360-degree view of the feeding operations with the ultimate goal of turning your feeding center into a profit center. So when we talk about the modules, it really becomes a customized program because there's several modules with different resources and tools underneath each of them. And today we're going to dive into that a little bit because it can be overwhelming to start with, right? So we're going to look at what are some ways that clients and prospects can be introduced to FeedFIT as a program and what some of those tools and resources look like. So Jordan, would you mind kicking us off a little bit and talking a little bit about maybe some of the ways that new prospects and clients can learn more about FeedFIT?
Yeah, as you mentioned, FeedFIT, over the last few years of getting it started and fully developed, it has been one of those things where you can't bite, the whole elephant at once type of thing. And a little overbearing. So here in the last 6 months, we've kind of broken it up into chunks to make it a little easier to get started. And one of the kind of entry points is what we're calling FeedFIT Discovery. And so with FeedFIT Discovery, it's kind of that 30,000 foot overview of the feed center. And we're targeting 3 areas. So FDR, feeding data review, a mixer review, and then a feed bunk review. So with the mixer review, we're looking at the loading action, so placement of ingredients in the mixer wagon. Is the wagon level when they're loading ingredients and doing their final mix time, as well as just sequencing of ingredients. Are they in the right order? Potential efficiency gains with how the feed center is set up. Are they wasting time with their movements and how they're loading those ingredients? Are there opportunities to do some things different? We all know we get stuck into our routines day in, day out, and sometimes a fresh set of eyes can bring on some new ideas, new discussions that can enhance some of those efficiencies there. And then with the feed bunk review, we utilize cameras in the barns, and the cameras tell the story for us. So we can sit down and look at 5 to 7 days of activity in those barns. Some of those things would be first feed drop times. Does that correlate to what we're expecting to happen? For example, if we're expecting that pen to be fed between 6 and 6:15 in the morning every day, does that actually happen? Or is there quite a bit of variation around that? Other things would be push-ups. So how often is feed being pushed up, and is it getting done in the schedule in which was set up on that farm? And then we also look at just general activity in the barns. So on like herd check days, are cows being locked up for excessive amounts of time? Is there opportunities on shot days that cows are spending too much time being locked up and kept away from the stalls? So those are some of the things that we can look at with those feed bunk reviews. And then Erin does a wonderful job with our feeding data reviews, and I'll let her explain a little more on what she does with those.
So the feeding data review, or FDR as we call it, is a summary of the feeding software data over generally the last or most recent quarter of information in the program. So I feel like that when you look at the information, when we look just a week or two back, sometimes it's hard to see trends. And so I like to look at 3 months, and that helps us to see maybe if something is trending up or down, and I feel like you can see that better over that period of time. Within the review, we look at first feeding times to see how consistent they are, and compare that with the programs that Jordan was talking about. We also look at dry matter intake to see if those are going up or down over a period. Sometimes whenever there are nutritional adjustments, you might see some response in that, and so we can pinpoint those things if we needed to. We also look at weighback values. Weighback values are, we have different goals for different animal types, and we want to look at how consistent those are, and also if they're being recorded. Sometimes we have, inconsistent data sampling, and so that helps to kind of show that information back to the dairy and help them to see how that impacts, what they're getting out of their program. We also look at target dry matter changes, buck call changes, and to see just how consistent those are. And so those 4 different parameters are really looking at consistency, because if we're, having large swings in something, then, that's not the way you want to treat the cows. You want to try to be as consistent as possible so that you can encourage them to make as much milk, right? So on all of those things, we have different goals that the nutritionist will target and can kind of focus in on those. Another big aspect of the feeding data review is feeder loading accuracy. For me, over the years, I've come to when I look at that deviation or loading error, I try to focus on, over a month of information, I like to look at all of the actions for that ingredient and have a goal of plus or minus 30 pounds, so that I want to see that deviation at less than 30 pounds of dry matter. And I choose to look at the dry matter information because, that's what's feeding the cow. And also it makes it more consistent across ingredients as you're looking at that. So, if you have a corn silage that you overload 100 pounds, it's like 30% dry matter, versus a mineral, it's like 98%, 100 pounds. That's a big difference in actual feed to the cow. So we look at those. If there is, pricing information, we can try to attach some sort of impact on how much those deviations are costing. So if the dairy is using that portion of the program, we can use that information. I also look at just how often they're putting in forage dry matter entries, and how, are they updating their corn silage once a month, or are they updating it a couple times a week? And so the consultants will also, have different goals for when they would like to see those types of things updated within the program. Certain programs allow me to look at actual loading data as well. And so I'll look at that, and we can see how consistent the feeder is feeding or adding the ingredients, any errors that may be occurring during loading. You can kind of pick those things up.
I mean, one of the things that triggered a thought with the mixer review aspect is the loading deviations, and by the naked eye, when we're doing those, we can't always tell if they're hitting those targets right. But we potentially could notice an ingredient that kind of runs out of the bucket, and then we can take that data and say, when you add that mineral mix, it's really running out. The feeder's having a hard time feathering that bucket, and we are consistently 100 pounds over our target weight, and thus it's costing you, X dollars over a course of the day, and then you put it over a month and help highlight that to the dairy, potential loss of profit because of excess use of expensive ingredients. So there's a tie to it all as far as, what we see and then how the data corresponds to those observations is key. So they are tremendously helpful in the work that we do.
If you're enjoying this podcast and you want to learn more about GPS Dairy Consulting, make sure to join our email list. Our announcements aren't just for GPS clients, but instead for anyone looking to advance their dairy business. Learn more about GPS and take a deeper dive into dairy farming hot topics. Stay in the loop with our once weekly emails and have all GPS DairyCast podcasts, blog posts, event announcements, and monthly newsletters sent straight to your inbox. You can join the GPS email list by clicking the link in the show notes.
Yeah, Erin, you've done a lot of FDR reports for us. If you could kind of narrow down like the top one or two areas of opportunity that you most commonly see in them, what would some of those be?
I guess it would really be just attention to like feeder loading. I think sometimes people think faster the better, but sometimes faster is more errors.
Sure.
And so just in reviewing information with feeders, communication, my goal in creating these reports is to create a point that the dairyman can sit down with a consultant, maybe the feeders, and have a conversation about what's going on the farm. The data tells a story, over that time period. And when we see things that are happening, say, if the feeder is loading something too early, maybe they're not realizing it, or maybe there's procedural drift that needs to be addressed. But it's not like an accusatory conversation. It's just, making sure we're all on the same page and have the common goals and what we're working towards. And so opening that door for that communication to occur, is what I think that it brings a great opportunity from that. But just letting people know where they are, as far as how consistent they are on feeding times, or how often are they adjusting butt calls, what's going on actually on the farm that they're recording in their program, and just to help them get the most out of that feed program, because it's a financial investment, and they should be able to utilize the different aspects of that program and feel comfortable with the data that they're getting. So
some of it almost creates a baseline for them to start with, right? So how often would you suggest a farm go through an FDR?
We have consultants who have me look at a farm like every 6 months or once a year. Some of the things that we look at, like I say, it gives us a baseline, and so it does take time if you want to see a change, or maybe things are going wonderfully and you feel real comfortable that's something that's that they're doing a good job at. And prospects also is a great time whenever our consultants go out to pull a data backup and to do an FDR, just to kind of give them an idea of where that herd is and a starting point for them.
Excellent.
Yeah, help get them acquainted to that farm, since we're not actively working with them. It's a great starting point to kind of open the door to more conversations around how we potentially could work with them and be a part of that team. And one comment too is that review process with the feeders. 99% of the time they genuinely appreciate that, because day in, day out, they probably don't always get a lot of feedback, and so it is a great way to keep them involved in kind of that journey of success for the farm, so that they know that we care about what they're doing and value it. And sometimes that has a negative connotation, but that's not the point. It's really to help them be better. And as I've done them over time, feeders actually really look forward to them and seeing how they're progressing. So that's really cool to see.
You've both talked a lot about taking the information and communicating it back to the client. So Jordan, tell me a little bit more about the FeedFIT Discovery part and some of the other aspects, the FeedFIT investigation. What would that look like if I'm a client and I've gone through that? How does that process work when you bring that information back and try and disseminate that to the appropriate people?
Sure. So with FeedFIT Discovery, we would pull together a report on everything we observed from feeding data review, highlighted areas of focus, and then with the mixer review, opportunities that we see with the loading process that potentially could be tidied up. And then with the bunk cameras, we log all the activity that was observed and break down once again if there are gaps there that we feel could help their team get better. So the whole goal is to get in front of the management team, the feeders, and review that information to see what we can do next to improve. The investigate takes it a step further where there's a little bit more information. We put a GoPro camera on the mixer wagon, so there you can get an inside look of what's happening with that mixer wagon, what you're getting for revolutions per minute, and is that kind of up to snuff with the mixer wagon specifications for whatever brand you have. And if it's not, then, addressing that. And we will also take 10 samples along the feed bunk at a fresh feed drop and send those to a lab and analyze protein, fiber, starch, sugar, and then your macro and micro minerals. And the reason we do that is when you graph out all 10 samples, then you potentially could see any drift in specific nutrients and could potentially say, yeah, this mixer wagon, although it looks like it's doing a good job, our starch gradually increases from, beginning to end of the drop. So something is not quite meshing here. That could have a negative impact on cow performance. And so that is all graphed out real nicely and by nutrient, so we can look at those individually and see, is the paper diet matching what's actually getting in front of the cows. And we've found through this work that it's not always happening. And so then you go back to the drawing board to figure out why, what's the gap and how are we going to address it.
So we talked about FeedFIT being this module-based program. Does it mean that clients can't investigate other modules, or is there ways that our team can bring them information from different modules as well?
Yeah, so as we mentioned, these are really good starting points, but we have what we call an a la carte menu of other modules that really touch any area of the feeding center. So depending on a farm's specific needs, because they're all unique in what they're needing for their operation, we can do just about anything. So for example, let's say a dairy is looking at building a new feed center. In 2023, our summer intern spent the whole summer on collecting information on a variety of feed centers, different designs, all the measurements, feed pads as well. And we compile that information and created a library. So we're not going to necessarily design it and build the facility, right? But based on that farm's budget and what they're looking for, it gives us a starting point on starting to look at some different designs, what they might be most interested in, and then from there potentially going on some actual tours of feed centers, getting in touch with farms that have the feed centers that they're kind of most interested in. And then hopefully in 2025, that library of feed centers that we have put together will be online and available to customers and prospects, so that they can start kind of doing their own virtual tours of feed centers and see what might best suit them for future builds. So that was a really fun project, really rewarding, and as a team, I think we all learned a lot too in working through that process.
I think it'll really provide a need in the industry too, of pulling all those resources together in one spot. So that was pretty neat to see come together. Erin, I know you spent a little bit of time over the last few months working on some projects for us within the feeding software module. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
From my feeding data review, when I do that analysis, I have several reports that I pull that information out. And so my thought was that whenever I look at a program, to identify the different reports or areas of the program where people on the farm can find that same data that I'm pulling for their review. And so I went through each of went through 5 different feeding software programs and highlighted the different areas that I look at to show them either the reports that I use or parts of the program that actually highlight that information that they can easily access and can hopefully learn to use their program a little bit better, or make it a little easier for them to find that same data without having to wait for another 6 months for me to come along and run a full data review for them. So.
Or a farm is starting a new feeder as part of their onboarding process, they can watch a video and get more familiar with the feed program that dairy has. And the GPS consultant will certainly work side by side with them to help coach them along the way. But it gives them a starting point of, something that can kind of coach them along with how to navigate the program a little more effectively.
Absolutely. I think that will be a really, really great resource that'll be helpful for a lot of people too. And kind of what this shows us is that FeedFIT is really an ongoing initiative, right? So there's a subcommittee that we have within our team that really works day in and day out to keep these modules updated and make sure that the information is relevant and continue to add information as we see the needs of the industry change too. So it is a really fun project that a lot of the team has been involved in, and that's a really neat part because everybody has some ownership in it as well. So, Jordan, how could a client or a new prospect get more information on how to get started with FeedFIT?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way is to reach out to your GPS consultant. I mean, we're always wanting to meet the needs of our clients. So if there's anything within the realm of FeedFIT that they have more curiosity around, please ask, and we're always willing to spend time on navigating the menu of services and resources that can fit their needs. And for prospects, if you don't know a GPS consultant, you can go to our website. We have a contact email there that you can certainly reach out that way to spur the conversation and get someone heading your direction.
Excellent. Well, Erin and Jordan, thanks so much for taking some time to chat with me today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
You just heard from GPS team members Stephanie Jens, Jordan Hunt, and Erin Mosley. Thank you for jumping on with us for the GPS DairyCAST. I'm your host, Peggy Coffeen from the Up Level Dairy Podcast, and thanks for listening with us today.
The GPS DairyCAST features conversations that deliver on the GPS Dairy Consulting promise to inspire change and grow leaders. If this GPS DairyCAST has you looking for more ways to become an elite dairy producer, find more information in our show notes on how you can add a GPS advisor to your team.